A lot to change. I think clearly the obvious need is defense. They've had a ton of injuries, and they've been kind of piecing together this back line, and it's been a struggle for them all season long, conceding goals. How do we fix a club like Real Madrid that looks like they'll be led by Xabi Alonso? A lot of teams that don't expect to have poor seasons year in, year out. Chelsea, Milan, Real Madrid, it's been a difficult 24-25 for the level that they expect to be at. Obviously, poor form is relative depending on which clubs we're talking about, but these three teams clearly fell under expectations, very high expectations that are set for both of them. So, we're going to bring in one of our favorite segments to try to fix these three sides. It is the Bargain Hunter. And here we go, because our man, the Bargain Hunter himself, Chris Wittyngham, is here with me on the show today. So we need to break down these sides. We need to see what can we do, what can be done with these three teams as far as getting them right and fixing them for next season to get back up to their level. So let's start with Chelsea. An interesting season for Chelsea. I think it was always going to be a little bit of a transition period for them. And so Maresca, they get off to a good start. Maresca kind of tempered expectations a little bit when you're talking about Chelsea, telling, hey, there's still a long process to go. He was right, because clearly they had some issues down the stretch. Still in the Conference League, of course, in the final. But what needs to happen for this team to make that next step, them and their approximately 700 squad players that they have on their roster?
The funny thing is that I think one of the biggest things, and this is kind of their record right now, you can almost kind of an exactly 50% win rate in the Premier League. They are into the Conference League final. They'll play Betis. I think that'll be a very difficult game for them as well. And then out in the Cups in the fourth round of both the Carabao and the FA Cup as well. But looking, I think, going forward now, I think for this Chelsea side, they've got a lot to do in terms of, I think, figuring out how to get the best out of Cole Palmer, but I think also trying to figure out some of the solutions for the overall squad, because I also think they have some defensive issues too.
It's interesting to see, because Cole Palmer, again, this is a team that they need, you see here, they need more experience. They have a lot of young players that have taken part. And you see that youth sometimes work to their detriment. I mean, Cole Palmer, it was incredible to start. And then the second half of the season, he's been absent completely from this side.
Yeah, and so these are the three things for me that I think they could use. I think experience is definitely one of them. You look at Adarabioyo being their oldest player, I believe at 27. This is a team that, look, obviously in the modern era, you understand buying young, you understand buying assets that get better with time, and that if they don't work out, you can sell them at a profit to other clubs. But I think Chelsea have gone a bit too much at approaching football as if it were a business, as if these were stocks and not players that are meant to be put together. So I think experience, I think, is a big part of this. You go to number two, obviously I think competition for Nico Jackson is absolutely important. He gets sent off at the weekend, terrible mistake, but in the overall, what's the biggest issue, in my opinion? I think it's that they generate chances, but they don't finish them. I think they need a better striker. It's kind of remarkable the money they spent on Lavia, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, their three midfielders, the fullbacks as well, that they don't have more up front. And then, just in terms of a player that I think maybe could help them, you don't even need to go out and spend a big transfer fee. Go bring Jonathan David in to go lead the line, to go be the player that can score those goals. We know he does it for Lille and Liga. You don't even need to go out there and spend 70 million on another fee, even though we're not going to do it. They're going to do that anyway.
Right, exactly.
But I think Jonathan David could be perfect for them.
They will have some competition for striker, because there's a lot of English clubs that need a striker, Arsenal being one of them just across town in London. So it will be interesting to see. I think there will be a battle for Jonathan David as far as it's not going to be the only side coming in for him, especially on a free. A lot of clubs will be looking that way as well. All right, let's move over to Serie A. Milan. Weird season for Milan. Really not where they expect to be in the table. Only having success against their biggest rivals in Inter, obviously. But they do win a cup. They do have a chance to win Coppa Italia as well. What needs to happen to this AC Milan side that it's not for lack of trying? They are bringing players in. They have spent money, just haven't been able to get it right.
And this is where I think we can kind of begin talking about Milan. I think the number one place, you look at them, 8th place in the table, and they're still kind of in a shout maybe with Champions League football. They've got 2 games to go. If they beat Roma, they give themselves a real opportunity. Lazio playing Inter as well on this penultimate match day. But I think let's kind of go through this a little bit. So I think the first part where we're talking about Milan, I think, is an organizational philosophy. Because you mentioned it. they went and spent big money in the summer. They went and brought in, even in January. They've had two philosophies this season. They had the Fonseca philosophy in the summer and the Concacaf philosophy in January, and now there's this mishmash of players. Who are you as a football club? And honestly, maybe that answer is the three-back system that we've seen from them in the final stretch of the season, where they've gotten better results. They might go and win Coppa Italia with that system as well, where I think Conceição has actually started to figure out some answers and getting the best out of players in a bunch of different positions. I think they need more control in central midfield. I think some of the issue that they've had is that Youssouf Fofana, I don't think, has been good enough as a player. Reinders has been terrific going forward, but I think they struggle. They lose control of games, particularly beginnings of games, where they sometimes get overrun through midfield. I think that's a big issue, and they haven't figured out if they want to play with a number 10, if Pulisic is that number 10, or they need more beef in that midfield. And I think they also need to add to that defense as well. That's why I've kind of gone within the league. They're not a club that spends big. I think Conny de Winter has been a terrific center back to Belgium for Genoa in Serie A this season. I can kind of see him getting a move to a bigger club in this summer, and I can see Milan being that club. You look at that back four, Pavlovic, Tomori, Gabbia. There's a few players in there I'm just going, they need a little bit of an upgrade on the level. I'm not certain it's exactly where they want to be. So I think De Winter, as an up-and-coming player, can be that level for Milan.
What I looked at there was your second one, control in the midfield. It might be tough. There's a lot of rumors that Reinders may be gone, and he's probably been the best player in the midfield. There are rumors that other clubs want him as well. So they'll have to really figure out how they're going to get that control in the midfield if they lose probably their best midfield player as well this summer. All right. Let's head now to Spain with Real Madrid. It's not been the season that they'd hoped for. They're going to lose Carlo Ancelotti, the legendary manager. That's a whole other conversation, whether they're better off with him or without him. They do get an incredible season from Kylian Mbappe, their new signing, but it's going to result in no trophies, which for Real Madrid is absolutely insane to think about, and swept by their biggest rivals in Barcelona. A lot to change. I think clearly the obvious need is defense. They've had a ton of injuries, and they've been kind of piecing together this back line, and it's been a struggle for them all season long, conceding goals. How do we fix a club like Real Madrid that looks like they'll be led by Xabi Alonso?
Yeah, I mean, and I think you kind of have to start with the midfield. When we talk about control as well, I think this is in some ways a different kind of control than what we're talking about with Milan. I think with Real Madrid, one of the issues for me is that they don't control the game with the ball. That they are more comfortable seemingly when the other team has it and they hit on the counterattack. I just don't think at the highest levels of European football that's an acceptable way of playing. I thought they got overrun. I thought Toni Kroos was the one player that did that for them last season. Obviously he left and they lost out. I think a midfielder, maybe even two or three, that can actually control the game, that Xabi Alonso is going to come in with his game model of playing with possession and trying to control games. They need a little bit more of that in midfield. Obviously, defenders is such a big part of this. And we talked about, you look at that back four yesterday, it's Tchouaméni and Raúl Asensio with Lucas Vázquez on the right and Fran Garcia on the left. That's not any of the four first-choice defenders. You're talking about normally it's Carvajal, Militao, Rudiger, and Mendy, and instead it's a completely different back four. They've got to get those guys back healthy, but honestly, they might be reaching an age where getting them back healthy becomes a little bit more difficult to do. They're guys that are moving into the latter stages of their career that I think they need a little bit more in the center of defense. In terms of players that maybe they can add, we're talking about midfielders that can bring you control. I've gone for Ederson from Atalanta. I think it has a bit of that class, that Real Madrid class. You have to have a certain kind of quality on the ball and in control of games where I think, look, it's not glamorous. Not going to sell any shirts at the team shop, but he's the kind of player that Real Madrid need. I think you'd sort of need a midfielder that's about defending, that's about possession, that's about controlling the game. And I think they don't have those guys right now. And I think that's why they miss out on some of these big games. Like Barcelona is always going to overrun them in moments of the game. You can't let Barcelona do that to you.
Where do you see Valverde fit into that? Because I think he's a midfielder that can control the game. Maybe he doesn't do so much to keep possession and hold possession, but he has, I think, a diverse skill set that can be kind of deployed in multiple places. You have Jude as well. Is he an 8? Are they going to play him as a 10? No. I think there's still a lot to decide about that midfield before they make any purchases.
Yeah, I think Jude, is kind of almost decided himself that he's more of a number 10. He's more of getting involved, playing in the final third. He's not that hard-working central midfielder that's flying around in both boxes. He's meant to be in creative moments. He's meant to be close to the striker and close to the wingers as well. And I think that creates a balance problem, but it really creates an onus as well behind him of players that can control the game, that are good in possession, and can hold on to it in big moments and get the ball forward into the attackers. Because I think that was another big problem, is that link between midfield. Tchouaméni, I don't think is very good on the ball. He's good physically, but I think he's very good on the ball. And I think that midfield, even with Valverde in it, yeah, I think he's better in that midfield than he certainly is at right back or on the right side of midfield. But I still think that they need a little bit more, particularly with the ball skills, I think, being good on the ball and creating going forward.
So Chelsea, Milan, Real Madrid, congratulations. We just fixed your teams. So make sure you follow the bargain hunter, my man Chris Wittyngham, who's just fixing teams right and left. If you need his services, he's right here at the Golazo Network. I'm sure that he'll fix your team.
Here for all of you.
He'll fix your team.